Everyone, welcome to this Audit and Risk Management Committee on Tuesday, 23rd of September 2014. I'd like to remind everyone present that this meeting will be recorded and that the recording will be subsequently made available for public listening. The first thing we have on the agenda is Sederunt and apologies.
Good morning. We have 9 members present today and have apologies from Councillor Gilroy and Councillor Stitt.
Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest? Okay. Next thing on the agenda is a minute of the meeting of 12th of June 2004. I'd like to move them. Okay, David McKee. Thank you. Okay, going on to the main agenda items, then we need to look at the report by the external audit on 2013-14 audit Dumfries and Galloway Council. Report by the Head of Finance. I'd like to welcome Lindsay Patterson of the external audit from PwC, who will take us through this and the following items on today's agenda. The main purpose of the report from our external auditors is to highlight any significant matters that have arisen during the course of the audit. I welcome the revised arrangements provided for the external audit report, also considering issues such as governance, accountability, performance management and improvement, and these are all contained in the report at Appendix 1. As members will see, the key issues arising from the audit that require to be addressed have been summarised in the action plan, which is contained at the end of the external audit's report. I think after hearing from Lindsay, I'll open up for discussion to members. Lindsay, over to you.
Thank you very much, and good morning. As has been said, this report really summarises the outcome of the audit process for the whole of the year for 2013-14. And I think one of the key things as well to note is the fact that the report goes to Audit Scotland. So some of what we include within this report is for the purposes of Audit Scotland's information as well. So there will be aspects of the report where you maybe think, why are PwC telling me what I already know? And really it is for that other audience, just to make that clear. If I move into page 4 of the papers, that's page 3 of PwC report. And really the key points there in the executive summary are to flag that we've completed our audit and that we will be signing an unqualified audit opinion on the financial statements, and that there are no unadjusted items that we need to bring to your attention. We also give a brief commentary around financial performance in the year, highlighting that the performance against budget, in fact, that actually was a satisfactory performance. If I move you into sorry, I've just spotted the numbering. I've given you the wrong number there. Page 13 onwards of our report, and this is where we pick up on, it's page 13 of 244. Sorry, I haven't made myself very clear there. What we do here is summarise our audit approach. We brought our audit plan to you to an earlier audit and risk committee, and firstly just need to confirm that there were no changes in the course of the audit. I've also set out on the next 3 or 4 pages the work that we did in relation to the significant audit risks which we put in our audit plan. And unfortunately, it doesn't show as green, but if these were in colour, you would see that for each of the risk areas, we have reached a satisfactory conclusion and given them a green light in effect. And so there are no matters that I need to bring to your attention in connection with these significant risks. I think one of the things that's worth emphasising is that going forward, some of these significant risks will continue to be significant risks for the Council and therefore continue to form a focus for the external audit. If I move into the next section, which is significant audit and accounting matters, which starts on page 14 of 244, and talk through some of the key areas that arose during the course of the audit, or some of the key areas of focus. Pensions assumptions clearly have a major impact on your balance sheet, and the assumptions that are used have quite a big impact on the numbers. And as part of our audit process, we need to consider those assumptions and whether they sit within the boundaries that we would expect. We also need to consider whether the pension assets are and obtain independent confirmation of those. None of the assumptions that we looked at fell out with the expected ranges, and we were comfortable with the confirmations that we received regarding investments and the assets, and also in terms of the census data and the pension itself. Another area where there is a lot of work in the year and also judgment by management is around the valuation of plant and equipment. And the council's officers undertake a rolling 5-year valuation of buildings to ensure that there are no needs for impairment or indeed whether assets need to be revalued. We considered the process of management review. We also considered the expertise of the management that undertook that exercise, and we are comfortable that the way in which that was undertaken is satisfactory and therefore could be. The other big number which still sits in the accounts is in relation to the equal pay provision and the liability. And as part of the audit, we updated our understanding of the current situation with regard to pay settlement and also any likely future claims. So we are comfortable that the provision should continue to recognise financial and also comfortable the disclosure of. Moving on to page 20 of the document, open cast mines has become a bit of an area of focus, as I'm sure you will understand, and we were asked by Audit Scotland to look at this in every country area and to understand what the impact is locally. And in actual fact, for Dumfries and Galloway, it's a good news story that we're reporting here in terms of the way in which the open cast mines had been monitored and managed by the council and indeed restoration, which at the moment is sufficient to cover the costs of restoration works. And I'm sure you're aware that that is not necessarily the case in other parts of the country. So I think that's a very important story. It is in here, and this is a very specific example of information that Audit Scotland has asked in their report back. And I suspect there will be some national commentary at some point around the open cast mine situation in Scotland. On the next page of the document, we talk about the charitable funds audit, and this was the first year that we were required to undertake the audit of the charitable funds, where the council is the sole member and in effect acts. The council took advantage of the ability to prepare connected charity accounts, whereby you group together a number of charities, and rather than multiple sets, actually. And that incorporated, and I should have written down the number, but 55 charities in total. So clearly a much more efficient way of organising 5 separate sets of accounts, and certainly from my point of view, was much more straightforward. In terms of the work that we did on the accounts, we are comfortable, and again we'll be issuing unqualified accounts. But there were 2 things that we wanted to flag. Because so many of the accounts of charities rely on investment, and with interest rates being really is very little income generated, and therefore the level of charity it is quite limited. And we know that management are in discussions with the charity to look at ways that charity could be maybe brought together and rationalised, and that might actually enable you to spend some money on charity and actually discharge the original objective. The other thing that we picked up on was that there are a number of trusts that couldn't be accessed, and absolutely understand why that is. A number of these charities and trusts have been in existence a long, long time, and I think it is again, I'm aware from work, not just that PwC has done, but from other audits, that this situation is replicated in a number of areas, but is being looked at critically. So we have raised an actual point to consider, and as I say, we're aware that management are active. In terms of the next chapter on governance and internal control, this very much is here to demonstrate how we've discharged some of our responsibilities under the Code of Audit Practice. So we've looked at areas like governance, like risk management arrangements, and included up information on the way in which the Council manages its affairs. And again, this is information that's of interest to Audit Scotland in particular. You may recall at the last Audit Committee that the presentation by Audit Scotland would be some additional scrutiny work undertaken by PwC under the auspices of the local area network and the shared risk assessment. In subsequent discussions with Audit Scotland, I agreed that work could be incorporated in the audit and reported here, and really looking at some of the scrutiny that members assess through in particular the audit that we're able to comment on. And I felt that was just a neater of delivering that rather than report. So that explains why. Moving on to page 26, we have highlighted that we consider that the systems of internal control in place within the council are appropriate, and we've also highlighted the reliance placed upon internal audit, and again considered the work that we undertake, how we undertake, and again considered the internal audit function within the council. We've also had to consider the annual governance statement, and again, no issues to raise around that. The next few pages on financial standing are very much for the information and interest of Audit Scotland, and this is an area where they are interested in looking at the future challenges the sector faces and some of the issues that may be arising. And I suppose the key thing, in this section is on page 32, which is where we talk about the agreed savings and the fact that going forward there will be a continued need to make savings for the council. Again, that's replicated across the country, but I think it is indicative of a challenging financial environment still to come. And as we all know, the longer you have plans of savings in place, the harder it is, which so far the finance team have done very well. But notwithstanding that final comment, are on page 33, we've concluded that there's no concerns for the finance. Moving forward in terms of best value and performance, again, this is partly for the benefit of Audit Scotland to understand the work that is done locally in terms of the statutory performance indicators, issues, the way in which it's gathered, and how that is supposed to be done. We did raise a recommendation around the national performance report produced by Audit Scotland, perhaps raising awareness among members so that they're aware of all the reports and moving back. It would be of interest to ensure that it goes to the committee for consideration. We also, moving on to pages 36 and 37, need to consider the risk of fraud within the council and look at the overall arrangement in place. What we're saying that you have the arrangement that you expect. I think the one thing that we have to say for all local authorities that are in some areas benefit, it's very difficult to operate in an environment where there is not any fraud. But there is nothing that we have identified through the audit that I need to say. We then move into the letter of representation, and the only thing that I wanted to flag from that, pages 42 and 43, just to note that we have included within that representation letter equal pay provision and also the open cap line, and that they are two specific matters that we have raised within that. And I just wanted to make sure that we're aware of them and that they hadn't been omitted. That was everything that I wanted to say, other than really Paul, Fiona, and the rest of the team for all of their work and cooperation.
Thank you very much. Before I bring any members in, Paul, do you want to add anything? I know, for instance, the National Performance Report, I received a report from Audit Scotland that it's going to the Scrutiny Committee, which I took to Derek alone, but certainly on the charitable purposes.
Nothing to add at this stage, Chair, but just happy to answer any member questions. Thank you.
Alistair?
Thanks very much indeed, sir. Would it be possible, Chair, I wonder perhaps to go through the action points, you know, in sequence, and if that's acceptable to you. The one I would like to raise, obviously, in the first instance would be action point 1. While I appreciate, Chair, that in the overall scheme of things, you know, what we're talking about here in terms of sums is comparatively small beer, the fact that we can only get sight of trust deeds for 20% of these charities is obviously a matter of concern, bearing in mind that, you know, councillors as trustees have a fiduciary duty to ensure, in fact, that trusts operate properly and that such expenditure is incurred, you know, is within the parameters of the trust deed. Now, it seems to me, sir, that for a number of years now, we've talked in this authority of implementing, I think the legal terminology is a C-Pray scheme, where you petition the Court of Session, in fact, you know, to get these trusts wound up, essentially, and get the monies in question applied to a much more modern, for want of a better term, Chair, alternative. And as I say, we've talked about this over a number of years, but we've never seemed to do very much about it. So I think this is an area in the back of the presentation today that we should be looking at making meaningful progress on. Albeit, as I say, sir, I will appreciate in the overall scheme of financial issues, it's comparatively small beer. It's nonetheless important. Grateful for your time, Chair.
Thank you very much, Alistair.
Thank you. I think I'm referring to action point 2. Councillor Geddes.
Action point 1, sir. Sorry, I beg pardon. Action point 2. My apologies.
Action point 2, yeah. Yes, we have made some progress alongside colleagues in legal services in terms of rationalisation of trust, but fully appreciate that there's a fair bit of work still to be done. We're trying to progress that further, but certainly in the back of today's discussion, happy to try and move that along a bit further. But it is quite complex in terms of moving this forward. It has been a bit slow, but we're certainly trying to make further progress on that.
Yeah, also.
Thanks, Chair. Grateful for the reassurance, sir. Thank you.
Graham?
Thanks, Chair. Of some 3 short questions here. Obviously, the fees on page 48 of 244. How many more years will we be fixing it at this rate? Obviously, with very constrained times. £408,000 for the audit, the fees. I remember you were saying last year you fixed it for another year. How many years are we going to get? 5 years at this sort of rate?
Can you put your microphone on, please?
Yes, the audit has another 2 years to run under the Audit Scotland appointment. It's something that we will discuss with management each year, and clearly the one area where I expect there will be savings, albeit the sums involved are not huge, is around the charity funds piece. I think that will come down for next year. Paul's looking at me, I suspect, to note of that very quickly. And we will look at it each year to determine where it should lie. But that does include the overall fees of the pension fund. So it covers both.
Right, thanks. The other question was on page 105 of 244. Normally when I look down, my wife's an accountant, my brother was a chartered accountant, and looking down the balance sheets on taxation and non-specific grant income, you've got capital grants and contributions. Would that be really, in my view, would that be capital allowances and whatnot?
No, that relates specifically to money that's made available by the Scottish Government to help fund the capital investment programme of the Council. We get that a general capital grant made available by the Scottish Government annually as part of the local government finance settlement, so that's what that is.
Right. The other question is on the page 113 of 244, looking at depreciation, other land and buildings depreciated on a straight line basis over or up to 50 years. Normally in agricultural terms, when I write down a shed or an agricultural building, it's written down in 25 years in the books. I was just wondering why it's so long, up to 50 years for some buildings and whatnot.
To be honest, up to 50 years, very much up to the 50 would be very much the exception.
I would have thought
I
so.
think in general, we're talking generally 20, 25 years for most of our buildings. I can't think of the top of my head who we're using 50 at the moment. No, I think it's generally much lower than that. It's very much up to 50 rather than 50 being the
And like a
general
new
rule.
school build could be up to 30 years?
Yes.
Right, that's fine. Thank you very much.
Davey and then Alistair again. Jill? Jill, did you want to come in? No. Okay, Alistair and then Jill.
Well, I've already spoken, sir. With your leave, I'll give way to Jill. chivalry's not quite dead, Chair.
Okay, huh?
Thank you, Chair. It was actually really just on the open cast mine situation. I mean, it is a positive, good news story for this council, and not all councils are in the same boat. And I think it would be important for this committee to actually congratulate the officers, etc., who were in charge of making sure that this was in place, because I think we could have found ourselves in a very different circumstance. So I think it's important that we actually do record our thanks for this particular piece of work.
I think coming back to, you know, ensuring the public know that we do a good job at a press release on something similar to that, because of the other areas in Scotland where it isn't as good.
Absolutely. I think it is important that we actually let the public know that this is in place, and we have done a good job here.
Alistair, Willie would like to come in a first question. I don't know if you will.
No, my sense of chivalry doesn't extend that far, Chair, with your leave. And I'm not being sexist, Jill, forgive me. If I may, the Chair, I'd be very grateful indeed. It's action point 3, sir, on page 53. And we're talking about, on a periodic basis, making reference to Audit Scotland publishing national performance audit reports, which are first rate, invariably, on subject areas. And it's being suggested, sir, that, you know, the Council should ensure that members are made aware of all such reports to enable us to assess whether or not we wish reports to be formally considered at the appropriate committees. I think that's an excellent suggestion, Chair, and I think it's one that we should really embrace. Coming along the road this morning, I was listening to the local news, and I heard John Lynch being interviewed about the housing options paper, which is fundamentally important, as I'm sure you would agree, Chair, and it's going up to the housing sub on Friday. And John made what to me was a very telling comment, saying in fact that the existing structure has been set up in 2003, which is 11 years ago, and that, you know, things have moved on since then, and there's been different ways of thinking, different reports produced, and all the rest of it. And we've never really addressed these. And I think, without trying to rehearse a discussion at Friday's subcommittee, I think that, you know, were we to adopt this recommendation, we would not fall into that trap, Chair, for the future. So therefore, that's essentially why I really do commend this to us as a committee, and, you know, hopefully adopting it and making sure, in fact, that the other relevant committees in the council, you know, get these reports, you know, brought before them. And I chose the specific issue of housing quite deliberately, Chair, because, I mean, given our large scale, at the risk of provoking my colleague on the right here, Councillor Scobie, in the back of the large scale voluntary stock transfer, there's a tendency and a temptation to say, well, we don't do housing anymore, and nothing could be further from the truth in our role as strategic housing authority. And as I say, I think that, you know, in its own is well worth the reason as to why we should be really embracing this and taking it forward. Grateful to you for your leave, sir.
Thanks very much, Alistair. As I said before, the national report, and I've asked to go to scrutiny committee anyway, and hopefully that'll be given out to all members once they've had a discussion on the outcome of that particular report. Willie?
Alistair says we don't do housing. The folk out there don't believe that. I'm sure. It follows on from what Alistair was saying under action point 3, but referring back to page 24 of 244, and I think the remark was made that the discharge of responsibility, additional scrutiny has been undertaken, and hopefully that is to ensure proper reporting and decision making by the elected members. I've got to be careful here, because I think I'm winding my way to Audit Scotland on what could be a complaint. But nevertheless, I'll deal with the issue just now, because under 24, the bullet point governance and accountability, where it starts, however, going forward, giving the significance for the leadership role in elected members in relation to scrutiny and performance improvement, it was proposed that PwC should undertake some targeted scrutiny activity in 2014 on the effectiveness of the performance management and scrutiny arrangement and holding officers to account and driving improvement forward. My question is just how intensive was your examination in 2013-14 in terms of reporting and the reports, where indeed it is the elected members that take the decision and not decisions being taken by officers. that have an impact and indeed could put into question and doubt the whole best value issue and performance. So it's back to accountability and that members are taking the decision and not officers. Hence my reference, I may be winding my way to Audit Scotland.
Lindsay?
The work that we undertook was as part of our role as external auditors, very much based on our observation of attendance at this committee, for example, and seeing the way in which members to account, for example, looking at the papers, asking and demanding and challenging questions of them, and looking to see if we do see that policy is taken through. So it is done at a relatively high level, what we have agreed with Audit Scotland was required.
But it is capable, and within your role then, that you could look at, you know, the decision-making process and whether indeed decisions are made by the proper forum and the elected members rather than officers.
One of the things that we would look at potentially is whether decisions are made in accordance with delegated authority. Yes, absolutely, that can be. And is to
Brian?
Thanks, Chair. Just going back to the bonds that we made reference to regarding the open cast, I do commend officers for the safeguarding of this council that they were responsible for, not least as far as Glenmucklock and such were concerned. But maybe other members share my lack of understanding, maybe not, and I'm happy to be made wiser after this meeting, if that's more helpful for officers. But I don't understand where a bond for example, £100 million might be taken out, and then there's a bidding war as to what the actual settlement figure is. As I say, I don't know how other members view that, but I'd be interested in better understanding where you invest in a £100 million bond, but maybe have to settle for 75 million or whatever the figure may be as dictated by negotiation.
Paul, do you want to pick that up?
To be honest, I'm not sure I'm in a position to answer the question, but happy to pick that up separately with Councillor Collins if that's helpful.
Derek, you want to come?
No, I think the point's been well made, and certainly as Councillor Collins has offered, more than happy to just clarify the detail of that following the meeting, and we'll inform all members of just what the detail was. Happy to do so.
Okay, any other questions? Can we move on to the recommendations then? First one is to receive external audit report, which we've done so. Two is to note that no issues have been identified in the course of the audit which have impacted on fairness of the financial statements submitted for audit. Point 3 is note that the updates on the actions that will be presented to future audit and risk management committees. 2.4, note the audit accounts which will be certified by Head of Finance and PwC after this meeting. And 2.5, note that the certified accounts and summarised accounts will be made available to all members before 31st October 2014, when they will be made available on the council's website. I think we have to agree that, you know, the thanks for the work that's been done, both in Glenmucklock and the work that's been done that Jill mentioned earlier on. Is that okay with everybody? Okay. Moving on to point number 5 then, is report by external audit on the 2013-14 audit of Dumfries and Galloway Council Pension Fund, report by Head of Finance. And again, Lindsay's going to take us through audit findings for the pension fund. As members will see, the key issues arising from the audit that require to be addressed have been summarised in the action plan, which is contained at the end of the external auditor's report. And after hearing that, well, again, I'll turn to the members for any questions. There is, I mentioned earlier on, a slight typo, which we can't, I mean, I don't think we can look forward to 2114 in page 1, so that'd be something else if we go there. But can you go through the report, please, Lindsay?
Yes, apologies for that. We seem to have a bit of a problem with the year in which we're reporting upon, but we will make that change. If I start in the executive summary on page 167, just to confirm that our audit opinion will be unqualified on the pension fund account, and that there are no matters that have arisen that we would be required to report to the pensions regulator in accordance with our responsibility under the Pensions Act 2004. And as I'm sure you appreciate, the pension side of things is a highly regulated sector, and we do have a number of quite wide responsibilities straightforward. On pages 168 and 169, we highlight we give the financial highlights, looking at some of the movements year on year in the financial performance and in the numbers that we're showing. So the increase in contributions is primarily been driven by one pay rise for employees. In the benefits section, the pension payments increase is largely both annual pension increase, but also an increase. We've also highlighted approach and that there were no that. The investments figures on page 170 obviously constitute a fairly substantial number, and we do need to do sufficient work. And what we've highlighted here is that there are different levels of investment, and the ease both value and level 1 fixed interest and index-linked investments, we can agree quite straightforwardly with third-party contributions. The level 1 and level 2, again, we can have third-party, and level 2 and 3 have understandable approach into valuing those, but we didn't identify any particular concerns that were subject. On page 173 of the document, we've highlighted a couple of control recommendations that we picked up. The first one was around when new employees being added to the scheme and just some delays in employees being added. But it has no, I think the key thing to stress there, that delay does not have any impact on themselves and the benefits that they or what pension they will ultimately. It is so it doesn't create a disadvantage to anybody, and I think in a way that's the point. And then the second issue there was around some delays in getting the employee contributions from some of the administrative bodies. The delays were not so significant that the pension decided they would need to report that to the regulator, and PwC no need to do that. I think what is quite interesting is that where we reporting not the opinion that we were required to give here, something of that nature would actually feature in our audit opinion and other pension funds that it's viewed with that level of seriousness. So we definitely think that it would be a good idea to remind the regulatory body of the requirement that is a regulatory requirement. That was all that I planned to say on that report, but very happy.
Thank you very much. We've got Andy. Have you got anything to add to that, Andy?
Not really, Chair, but obviously happy to answer any questions.
Members? Davey?
Just, I remember a number of years ago we increased the amount of contribution by the council and not had to run for so many years. How is it performing? It seems to be that the money, the income has been quite high in the last year or so, but how are we overall? Because obviously, because you'll tell us these can fluctuate overnight sort of thing. So how are we with actually covering if everybody had to do or leave, can we pay everybody out?
If everybody left today, they wouldn't get paid out for a few years, so there's not a great. Some of them might get something. Obviously, the two main levels of income to the fund are from the investments and from the contributions, both from the employee and employer. The employee contributions are fixed by statute and are stepped according to salary, of pensionable pay. The employer contribution is reassessed every 3 years with a triennial valuation. We're actually undergoing that just now, as at the 31st of March 2014. Results from that will be available hopefully towards the end of the year, and that will set the employer contribution rate for the next 3 years. Investments, as you say, are subject to fluctuation. And if you have to go back over the last 4 or 5 years, you would see decreases in valuation, substantial increase in 2012-13 in the valuation, a healthy increase during 2013-14, which wasn't up to the same level, but they are subject to market fluctuation.
Can we go to the recommendations then? The recommendations received the external audit report in 2013-14 audit. Note that 2.2, note that no issues have been identified on the cost of the audit which have impacted on the fairness of the financial statement submitted for audit. 2.3, note that updates on the actions identified will be presented to future pension subcommittee. 2.4, note the audit accounts which will be certified by the head of finance and PwC after this meeting. And 2.5, note that the certified accounts will be made available to all members before 31st October 2014, when they will be available on the council website. Is that okay for everybody? I've no further business for today's meeting. However, I would wish to pass on the thanks of this committee to Fiona McLaren, who for the last 8 years has been the finance officer responsible for the work related to preparing and publishing the final accounts. She's been with the council 13 and a half years. Fiona's leaving the council to take up a post with Manager Council, and this will enable her to be closer to her family in the Central Belt. And I'm sure that I speak for all members in thanking Fiona for her hard work and diligence over the past few years and wishing her all the best for the future. Thank you, Fiona. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That's the meeting now closed.